China's trying desperately to undermine the West. It's getting help from some expected places, and one maybe not so expected place. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Shelley Zhang, filling in for Chris Chappell, who's off fulfilling his lifelong dream of disappearing inside the Bermuda Triangle. Don't worry, he'll be back soon. But while Chris has been gone, YouTube's suppression of China Uncensored has been worse than ever. That's why we need you, China Uncensored's 50-cent army, to keep Operation Honeypot going. Be sure to watch this episode to the end and leave a comment below with a honeypot emoji. Do it for Chris. The Chinese Communist Party is determined to undermine the West, especially in the United States. It's been rapidly modernizing its military so that it can challenge Washington and its Indo-Pacific allies. It's also been trying to displace the U.S. in global commerce and technology, including AI, and through influence campaigns. It's also trying to provide the absolute best quality of life and most freedom for its citizens, as you can see in this footage here. But the CCP isn't doing it alone. One small Muslim-majority country in the Persian Gulf is helping them out, which makes total sense since we all know how well the CCP gets along with Muslims. I'm talking about Qatar. Qatar has put itself in an interesting place on the world stage, especially under the leadership of Emir al-Thani, who's reigned since 2013. On the one hand, Qatar hosts a major U.S. military base and was designated as a major non-NATO ally for the U.S. by the Biden administration. But at the same time, the Chinese Communist Party has long desired to increase its influence in the Middle East, and relations between China and Qatar have strengthened over the years. Back in 2014, Qatar established a $10 billion fund to invest in Chinese real estate, healthcare, and infrastructure, which, if you ask me, is a risky investment. And since 2017, Qatar has been China's primary supplier of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, accounting for around 35% of China's LNG imports. Yeah, that's what an LNG carrier ship looks like. You learn something new every day. But that's not all. Last week, China also gave approval to Qatar to acquire 10% of top Chinese asset manager China Asset Management Company, making it the first Gulf country to invest in China's financial sector. It used to be very hard for foreign companies to invest there, but over the years, the CCP has gradually let more foreign companies into the financial sector because they frankly really need the cash. And with foreign direct investment in China falling to the lowest level in decades, they really need the cash. That's right, the CCP's economy is teetering so badly that it needs a sugar daddy to help bail them out. The Qataris seem more than willing to help, but it goes both ways. China's also sunk $4 billion into Qatar through investment and construction funds. Some of that included $764 million to construct the Losail Stadium for the World Cup 3 years ago, which was totally worth it, if you don't count the dozens of migrant workers who died constructing it. But hey, by CCP standards, those are amateur numbers. Last month, a trilateral summit in Malaysia between the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, China, and the Gulf Cooperation Council also included a delegation from Qatar. That conference was meant to underscore the importance of deepening ties between the two blocs and the Chinese Communist Party. Yep, they want their ties tighter than the zip ties on businessmen arbitrarily detained under Chinese crackdowns. Of course, countries around the world deepen economic ties with China every day, and it's not always a red flag. Yet Qatar also has a history of working in some capacity with people who don't exactly love America, including Russia, the Taliban, and Hamas. And the CCP is no exception. For instance, China and Qatar are seeking to cooperate in the energy sector. In 2022, Sinopec and Qatar Energy signed a $60 billion, 27-year liquefied natural gas agreement. It could be the longest agreement ever signed in the history of the LNG industry, which makes sense. After all, it's not like China's ever shown itself to be unstable or untrustworthy. Sinopec also acquired a stake in the Qatari North Field East expansion project, making it a shareholder in the world's biggest natural gas field. I wonder if the CCP doesn't realize you don't need actual gas to continue all the gaslighting they do. Sure, China's economy needs plenty of energy to function, but this is also about military strategy, one that can harm U.S. interests. You see, Taiwan heavily relies on Qatari LNG exports for its energy needs too. And as we pointed out in this episode, China's been practicing for a blockade of Taiwan and striking Taipei's stockpiles of supplies, including energy. Yep, everything China does always comes back to three things: Taiwan, the US, or Xi being a silly old insecure bear. So, in the event of a Chinese attack on Taiwan, Beijing could lean on Qatar to enact a de facto blockade far from the island's shores, bringing Taiwan to a grinding halt to achieve reunification while leaving Taipei intact. This could cause a Taiwanese capitulation, which would make it less likely for its allies to intervene, and allow China to dominate the Western Pacific. But Qatar is also doubling down on its National Vision 2030 plan to steer its own economy away from an over-reliance on energy and toward more high-tech industries, which makes it a prime opportunity for Chinese tech companies. According to National Review, major Chinese national champions such as Huawei have taken a leading role in building Qatar's 5G network, while government data is stored in a sovereign cloud powered by Chinese firms. Since Qatar wants to have a knowledge economy going forward, it's likely that it will increasingly turn to China for artificial intelligence, such as DeepSeek, and eventually for microchips or semiconductors. That would be a powerful endorsement of and advertisement for China's growing high-tech sector. And given Qatar's dubious ties to U.S. adversaries, who knows where this Chinese-made tech could end up? So the CCP and Qatar are collaborating in some pretty interesting ways, sharing investments, natural gas, and technology, but that's not all, because they're also collaborating on undermining the U.S. through influencing higher education. Authoritarian states like China have dwarfed America's allies in influencing U.S. colleges and universities, which is totally, completely unconnected to the unrest we've been seeing on these campuses for the last few years. In 2021, China signed $120 million in contracts with American universities. For example, the University of Houston alone secured a $32 million contract to work with China's Dalian Maritime University in crafting a joint institute, while the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign entered into 5 agreements worth combined $26.5 million. China's also aiming higher, meaning the Ivy Leagues. Sorry, safety schools, you're still nobody's first choice. This is partly why the White House is going after schools like Columbia and Harvard. Meanwhile, according to a report by Americans for Public Trust, in 2024, China and Qatar together gifted or contracted over $500 million to U.S. universities. That's right, the CCP and Qatar, for their own reasons, are gaining influence in U.S. higher education, $500 million worth. Man, it must be hard to spend that money with all those strings attached to it. Some of the schools receiving the most Qatari funds were Ivy League universities like Harvard and Cornell, which coincidentally are also some of the schools that, after October 7th, started seeing some of the largest upticks in anti-Semitic rhetoric and intimidation, which often bleeds into anti-Western and anti-American ideologies. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence, a carefully planned, coordinated, and executed coincidence. In fact, many of these protests include both self-identified communists and Islamist revolutionaries. Another big fat old coinkydink. Creating this internal chaos in the U.S. will undermine Washington's ability to focus on the broader global stage, where China and other actors are already harming American interests. And if the CCP can get a little help, especially economic help amidst the current turmoil, then all the better for them. And we can all use a little help sometimes, so thank you for watching to the end of this episode and leaving a honeypot comment below to help us fight YouTube suppression. You can also help by signing up for our free China Uncensored Substack newsletter. Since YouTube barely recommends our videos, we started the newsletter to let you know about all of the episodes we publish each week. But it's so much more than that. You get a special behind-the-scenes look at the show, extra China news, and more. So you should definitely subscribe to the newsletter. The link is below. I'm Shelley Zhang, filling in for Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.